Hello, welcome back to another Filming Stories. Welcome back. Uh, if any of you have decided to check out what you just watched and are here now, that's very interesting. Um, so yeah, So this is a very interesting thing to talk about, I guess, depending on how you take to this. Um, so I'm just kind of gonna get into this because I know that I know that there's definitely some, at least if anybody just cared to watch it or or wish to indulge, there's definitely questions, and I definitely want to try to uh, kind of make myself clear, as to why certain things are in the film and why I wanted to kind of exaggerate a certain point. Um, so, First and foremost, I'm just going to be upfront because I don't want to, just delude myself. The the Let's call it as it is. The sexual content that's in the film. Um, there may be a argument made where you may think, oh, this seems very self pleasurable or there's some weird thing going on here. I will not deny that a part of the feeling, resides in that sphere. I'm not going to deny that. Um, I won't, because I could try to delude myself and say, oh no, it's was totally 100%, driven by artistic merit and there's a fundamental reason and stuff. I will completely acknowledge that there is a part of me upon doing this. It's like, yes, there is a bit of an indulgent factor that does reside in that. I'm not going to deny that. However, I will say, at least to me, there is a point to it being there, which I will explain, at least in my perspective, why it is that it's there. Because it's not an easy thing to put out, and it certainly was not an easy decision to make either. Um, because just to give you guys some context, the edit for this specific film was done about a month ago. So actually, literally today of this recording being the 25th, um, it was done about a month ago and uploaded to my drive to save. Um, so I've had a month to sit with this, and I have been, thinking about it, trying to figure out, does it feel appropriate to put out, and is there, a point to what's being made in the story? Is there something there that is worth, expressing? Which probably is not the best choice of words given what's in the film. Um, but um, I talked to a friend of mine about it. I was very careful too about who I was going to talk to because, um, I think some people will agree, especially if you've watched the short. If you're going to get any criticism, or anybody to tell you anything before it formally goes out, you got to be extremely careful as to who you show this to because um, just to give some backstory about where this idea came from, um, this kind of goes back a little bit to when what would become Carousels and that film I. Uh, those two films were the result of one idea that I had had many many years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, and I had uh, I've been working on it, that idea, kind of free balling for almost an entire year. We didn't have a script or really had much direction, really. It was kind of more therapeutic in some regard. And it became extremely exploitive, and that's why I eventually stopped doing it. But I always had like this curiosity, to kind of dip my toes back into that world. So I would preview certain things to people, creatives, people that I thought, creatives, and see what they think of it. And needless to say, I showed this to one person specifically, and I haven't heard from them since. And I totally understand why. I'm not, saying, I actually, I remember texting them like profusely, like, "Yeah, I'm sorry," if that was, in hindsight, it's like it's not something that, and I did warn him in advance, so it's not like I just showed him an image and like, here you go. It's like, I did, make sure that, um, he was prepped to some extent, but at the same breath, even if you're prepped or not, it's still very, sensitive material to be showing to somebody. Um, so, so that's where it kind of, the seed was there at the start, but, I went off and did, other shorts. I took a break for a while. I think it was like about a year or so, and then I eventually started getting my curiosity perked up again. And then I started making shorts last year once again, and I wanted to really just kind of just fuck around. Like, I think that's kind of like the best way to put it. I've been so accustomed to this point, to doing things a very specific way, and it's like it's like, running the same field. It's like you get a rhythm of, the cuts and, at the corners when you're doing like track and field, like you're just running the same laps over and over. You get a sense of just how things are going to go, and I kind of wanted to break the cycle a little bit. So with these shorts that I've been working on, I have been, trying to explore in a little bit of a different way. And the last thing that I really did before this, the film IO, was really my biggest attempt to kind of leap into something different and to try to branch out from what I normally do. Um, and then we come here now. Um, the literal origin, because in talking about where the visual medium comes from, that's where I was kind of bringing up the last few shorts with carousels and stuff like that, many a few years back. With having that content already kind of being utilized within a specific purpose. Back then, I didn't know really what the purpose was, but something to that extent was always there. So it was not like it just came about in this specific film. It was always something that was kind of there before. Um, and getting into this, I, it's very similar to IO in terms of where it spawned from. I was bored. I was bored at my job. I mean, I like my job, but I was just bored. And I started just doodling, started writing stuff down. And I started to think of something that, in my view anyway, is a comment on really, I think, life itself, and taking a more exaggerative approach to that commentary. And it's not something that you're meant to be taken seriously. I hope that's made clear by watching it. It's not meant to be taken extremely seriously. Um, there is a point to, I believe, I mean, but I'm biased. I'm the one who made it. Um, I would think that there is a point to that is trying to be made there, and the point that I'm trying to make is a point about life itself, where we have these uh, these barriers, to the reality itself, and we live in our own illusions, and we move in that way, and what we do, is really just for our own pleasures, and the that's kind of in some manner what the visual meaning behind the sexual content is meant to kind of derive about, is the exaggerative illustration of self pleasure, in the literal form of it. Um, and and that's the whole gimmick behind the whole blindfolded, gimmick, for the first part of the movie, for first part of the short is, you're seeing this person just doing what they normally do. That maybe they'll go for do some jogging on the treadmill, and and I also will be, I will also, be clear, it's not perfect by any means in terms of just like production. Sometimes the blindfold, there was times where it got a little bit more close up in my on my face, like this, and other parts where, the wrapping was kind of like like kind of crossed, um, and I wasn't really concerned about that stuff because, like if I don't know, if, for me personally, like lately, I just been more intrigued with ideas and not necessarily with just, I guess real perfectionist or consistency in certain ways. Because then you start getting into a spirit where it's like it just will just consume you and it'll take longer than it really needs to. Um, so so I I wanted to, just kind of get my point across as well as I can without having to worry about so much about the fine detailing, because otherwise, this would take so much longer, and it probably would balloon up into something a lot bigger, and it would just, it would take away from what I'm trying to do, um, or how I'm attacking it. So. But yeah, the blindfold gimmick, that's the whole thing, about how ignorance basically, where everybody has their perceptions and their worlds, even though we all exist together in the same earth, it's like we all bear our own little belief system. And because of that, the way we function is based off of our own system. And that blindfold is kind of a illustration of just your view of the world, which is a black and white scenario, even though people will be very nuanced, in their discussions, how they fundamentally feel and think. And ultimately, the way to thrive, in this world is to be ignorant to some extent. Thus, it has to be a black and white scenario a lot of the times in order to have some level of peace in your heart, and just sound mind. Um, it's when you take that blindfold off is when you actually see reality for what it truly is, and that's when you strip away all the things that we have crafted, which is, your own perceptions, your own biases, your own ego, everything literal as it stands, like houses or cars or whatever. Strip all of that away, and you'll fundamentally see what is real, and it is scary, and it is terrifying, and and that's why also the switch to color, also happens, because the world is really not just a black and white scenario. It is more comforting to us, as we function. We will obviously, they will say that the world is nuanced and stuff, but in our heart, you can't take that all in, because it's not a healthy way of living. But it's also how society has also taught us. We have to bear a bias, we have to be ignorant, and without that, you are you are very knowing, and not it doesn't allow you to progress as much as just sitting with the weight of that understanding. So, um, and that's ultimately kind of like what the tunnel is meant to represent. Like eventually, after you see this person running through the fields, these really like empty plains, um, which again is meant to be the point of like of reality itself. Like once you strip everything away, all that is left is just the natural order. All that is left is just what what was born from the earth, not what we had created to stay here on earth. Not our own manifestations, not our own literal, inventions, just as it stands, what is real. And, we always are drawn back to our society, aka ignorance itself. And the tunnel, that's why you hear all those voices, you hear, like like just kind of like almost like you would hear chatter at a restaurant, people just kind of sitting around and talking and exchanging, walks back in, and there's the little ADR thing that honestly came about like literally like at the end of it, of production of the whole edit. I was just like kind of like piecing together something, and then all of a sudden I found this little ASMR with this woman, saying welcome, and what else did she say? Welcome, how are you, and good day. I don't know why, but for me, I just liked that transition to eventually coming back to at least full circle to where the film starts off with that shot of me, with the blindfold in black and white, laying in the bed, to that exact same shot, but now in color and without the thing. Um, and it's ultimately meant to be an expression to me about life and about how one has to function in life itself. You have to be ignorant, and you have to be, and people will probably might disagree to that, because they, in my view anyway, they are so ingrained into that societal way of thinking that anything outside of that is considered dangerous, or oh, that's just something else, that's talking, not necessarily you being of sound mind, stuff like that. But at least from my point of view anyway, I think that it is incredibly true. It's life as you know it is very, very uh, fake, and I mean, it's fun to be in it. I'm not saying that you can't have fun. I've always told my brother this, like, being ignorant is the passage to being fun, but you have to be obviously considerate and respectful. There's fundamentals, and a morality, that make it so that your ignorance is more justified than others. Um, but we're all ignorant, because if you're not, then you're going to be exposed to things or understanding of things that don't create much value, and it loses the stimulus. You lose that function to reside within the society that is built. Um, so that's, at least to me, how I approach this. Obviously, the nature of how it kind of presents it obviously is going to be a really, you know, give or take sort of deal. I completely acknowledge, to anybody um, who may feel just uncomfortable, with the depictions, or just feel, um, don't know exactly if you would be offended, but I mean, if you are offended, I mean, I apologize. I mean, it's not my intentions to be offensive, um, which obviously it's just acting. It's not anything more than that. Um, and also it's a very natural thing. Like, everybody ends up experiencing what's depicted. um, but um, but I understand, because it's a very private, situation, and that's being, visualized, So I understand. Um, so and ultimately, it's kind of left up to you, like with the whole titling. Am I dreaming? It's meant to be kind of like a double entendre, double meaning. There's the literal, how the film plays, trying to decipher, the what is real and what isn't. And then there's that deeper layering to what that question itself, which is, are we all dreaming? Are we all actually dreaming? And are we actually functioning in the now, or are we just deluding ourselves in the face of what is an inevitable thing? And the inevitable thing is obviously that death itself. So that's just my own perspective, and obviously, it's going to be. I can already see it's probably going to be very, very different for a lot of other people. I talked to my friend about it again, and just like I said, I mentioned up front. I had talked to a friend about this. I didn't show him anything, but I did talk to him about it, and he said the same thing. He's like, "Yeah, there's a good chance that there's going to be people who take to this in a very different way." Um, but at least from his point of view, he didn't see that it was going to be anything, uh, too bad. I mean, obviously, I don't anticipate. It's like no one cares. I mean, no one's going to really care to. It's whatever. And that's ultimately why I kind of am okay with it being out, because who's going to care? Who is going to really care at the end of the day? I mean, as a talking point, sure, but I mean, does it really affect me? Not really. Is it going to be like this detrimental thing? It's like no, it's a film. I mean, it's expressive, and there's lots of films that also have experimented and done weird and crazy things. The Lighthouse, they too have very similar types of sexual content in that film as well. Um, so I'm not saying that this is on any level of like the Lighthouse or whatever like that. I'm just making a point that, you know, weird stuff has been way more publicized than something like this. But like I said, if you don't feel comfortable with this, totally understand. I just think personally, I mean, I think that there is something there. Um, in that maddening thing that I mean, literally watching it, it's like I do feel that sense of like cringe. I will admit, um, but at the same time, I do think that there is a point to it, and you know, sometimes you just gotta take the risk, and this is me in those one of those rare points, just taking a risk and seeing what happens. So, so if you have opinions, please let me know. I mean, I welcome all of it. I will not be offended or upset. I'm not, I am sensitive, but I'm not like, that sensitive. If you have your opinions, totally fine. If you think that it's disgusting or if you think that's this and that, I have no complaints. Literally tell me, and I will absolutely read your comments. Um, so so yeah, so that's gonna be it for this filming stories, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's a bit of a long one, but I feel for what was released, I feel it's appropriate to dedicate some time to talking about this. So, but yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and yeah. So sometimes you just gotta take a risk. Sometimes you just gotta just see and you know do 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 something different. So yeah, that's gonna be it, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.